The objective of today's video is to bore you to tears. Hi everyone, my name is Charlie, and today, the 17th of July 2020, is the day in which I turn 28. Therefore, since nobody else celebrates my birthday, and I've begun to make it this day in which nothing really happens except I am now counted as being a year older, supposedly more knowledgeable and having more responsibilities than I did to educate the youth of tomorrow. I thought that I'd just tell you some facts about me because I have nearly been on this platform for 5 years and some of you have only the basic understanding as to how ruinous my life has been. I decided what I thought I would do is put together 28 facts for 28 years, similar to how 3 years ago I did 25 books for 25 years. I realised I'm not that interesting of a person, and so I had to go to Twitter 3 times just to try and eke out some idea as to facts you want to know about me. I also asked on YouTube and I asked on Instagram, and I'm sorry I did not note down names, but I will leave a list of people who asked for facts in the description. The first fact is that I have 4 siblings. 2 of them are older than me. The eldest is 12 years older than me, and then the next one is 5 years older than me, and they both come from relationships that my father had prior to meeting my mother in 1990. Theirs was a whirlwind romance. 2 older half-brothers who I was always brought up with, and then 2 younger siblings who share the same mother and father as me. Out of the 5 children, I was the most disappointing one, having no interest at all in farming, and the rest of my siblings have no interest in reading. They have no interest in writing. Their main interests lie in going and doing animal-related things, and here I am, talking to a camera. Charlie Brooke asked on YouTube for some facts that were related to me growing up on a farm, and despite popular belief that I grew up on a farm as I am the son of a farmer and my grandfather had a farm, I was not brought up on a farm. Whilst I used to really enjoy going with my father farming, and I did help him out with lambing sheep up until 2008, there was something that happened when I was about 7 years old that really just got rid of any want that I had had previously to go farming. But yeah, I wasn't brought up on a farm. My father was. That is why he's ended up becoming the farmer type person that he is today. And that is why my older brothers are into farming, my younger siblings do it, but wasn't brought up on a farm. I can tell you about holding in a sheep's prolapsed vagina. I can tell you how calming it is to go to ground for the month of April whilst lambing is happening and just forget about what's going on in the world. But it's also incredibly difficult and time consuming, and I just do not have that drive for farming. Another fact that I had to pilfer off one of you came from Mary Ann Moronsky asking how tall I am, and I am either 5'9" or 5'10". Then Sophie of Redhead Reading asked what the most influential piece of media was growing up. I think if we were looking for an influential piece of media, we'd have to go with Last of the Summer Wine, because that definitely influenced the way that I write nowadays, and was something that I think every single generation of my family has been able to watch because it was on the television for 30 years. And so it was something we could all sit down with and find something that we liked, and it has this nostalgic quality that helps to calm people down. Great stuff. But if we were actually looking for the thing that I watched the most as a child, then it would have to be Power Rangers. And I think that a lot of 90s children had this same sort of thing of watching teenagers jumping around in brightly coloured spandex, trying to stop people from taking over the world. Unfortunately, you then get older and realise that most of the evil on this planet comes from people who live on this planet, and those teenagers were never going to fight back against those sorts of things, and their entire existence fed into a capitalist structure. Very upsetting. At the age of 10 years old, my mother had to come into school because I wrote a story that was deemed too sexually charged. What happened was that we were asked to write a story for a mock exam surrounding the theme of home. At the time, I had the mildest obsession with the television drama Peak Practice, filmed near me. I live very close to the Peak District. I just really got into it. I got into it too much. And I remember thinking, well, all these people are going to be writing kids' stories about children doing stuff. I'm going to show these fake examiners I can impress them by being an adult. So I wrote this story about from the woman's perspective, and she and her fiance are getting married in this really lavish looking place. We're talking like manor house, dynasty, that sort of thing. And when they go upstairs, they discover that her former boyfriend is waiting to duke it out with her current fiance. And eventually things come to a head, and both of the men end up going over this balcony, crashing to the ground below. Yes, this was inspired somewhat by the finale of Peak Practice that I have never got over, by the way, that ended on a literal cliffhanger where these two women went over the edge of a cliff, and I have never gotten over it. And then my mother had to go in and chat to the teacher about this, because obviously, what the heck has he been reading that he's 10 years old writing such things like this? And my mum apologised to the teacher for always having Mills and Boon around the house. And it's like, I never picked up a Mills and Boon. I'm 10 years old. I didn't pick up a Mills and Boon. I was just trying to impress you. You were getting all these stories from kids talking about home and what it meant. I was impressing you with fiction here. I did really well in my English class. But similarly to now talk about writing, I got into writing because a certain writer that I shan't name was part of a documentary, and in this documentary she talked about how she was poor, and I saw her say this and talk about her life where she was on benefits, and I was like, this is me. I thought, you don't need anything to write. It doesn't matter if you're poor. You can write if you have a pen and paper. And so I decided that I'd be a writer then. And I can still remember being in a year 4 class, and the teacher was going round and all of the boys were saying footballers and all of the girls were saying pop stars, and I was just sat there, I'm going to be a writer. 21 years later, I think I'm going to talk about my teeth now, because isn't that just the content that you want? Anyway, teeth-wise, when I was a very small child indeed, a baby who still hadn't properly grasped how to sit up straight without falling over. They did not have the children's seats that they do have in shopping trolleys nowadays. My mum left me with my granddad, her father, and told him he'd have to hold me upright because otherwise I had this want to roll forward and knock into things. Well, he turned away for a second, I rolled forward, and I knocked all of the enamel off one of my front teeth. I believe it was this one. Over the years, they found that I had loads of different problems with my teeth, but this enamel tooth, well, this tooth that lacked enamel, wasn't coming out when I was losing all my other teeth, and eventually they decided to remove it. We had x-rays and everything, and they discovered that I actually had 3 sets of bloody teeth on this side of my mouth. 10 years old, operation. Great stuff. Where they remove all of the teeth that I just spent years growing with this second set so that they can allow this third set to come through. Then there's an issue because one of the middle teeth is flaming diagonal and it's going to come in and knock all my other teeth out of the way. So they're like, right, we're going to attach a chain to that. And then when you eventually get braces, that will attach the chain to a brace and then that'll pull that down and it'll straighten it. That did not happen. What happened was, a fortnight after I had the operation, my cousin decided that he was now scared of dogs, jumped up onto the settee behind me, kicked me in the head, the chain came loose, and I had to go to the dentist because I had a chain that I was having to pull behind my teeth because it was just dangling down in my mouth. Eventually, at some point, this chain must have fallen out because I remember it hanging from my gum, and I don't know what happened to it. Braces didn't work. I ended up having to fork out another £1,000 myself after the NHS had finished paying to straighten my teeth again, and now I have a fixed piece of metal at the back of my mouth holding my teeth the way that they are, which brings us into my next fact, which is apparently I have hypermobile joints, and I blame that for my crooked teeth. Because I knew somebody else who had the condition before I was diagnosed, and she'd had to have all of her teeth wired into her mouth. Let's talk about the diagnosis of that, because I do have something I find quite a funny story, but nobody else might. Anyway, they tell my mother when I'm a baby that my bones aren't setting correctly. And that means that for years and years, up until the age of 12, I keep having to go to see a doctor, a specialist about my feet, my hips, because when I was younger, I used to trip over my own legs because one of them, I can't show you, went diagonally. One of them went straight. The other one decided no. And so I'd constantly trip myself over because my leg was just like, no, I'm not gonna walk the right way for you. So I trip over. Great stuff. 7 years old again. My teacher decides he doesn't walk properly. He can't run. I'm like, okay, so just call me out in front of the class. And so they all got to do PE. And for 1 year, I had to just walk around this straight line in the hall, having this teacher shout at me every second if my leg wasn't straight. Did it make my leg straight? No. Did I get sent to a specialist because the teacher threatened my mother with social services? Yes. Did the NHS get fed up with us because they told me not to go back till I was 12? Yes. And did any of this help anyway? No. Because when I was 17 years old, and this is the point I was getting to before, I happened to be in our old shop in Macclesfield, and I lifted up a box and I heard this crack. So I don't know what that crack was, but suddenly I couldn't walk. And because of being the type of person I am that doesn't ever really like to draw attention to myself anywhere where I'm ill or whatever. In fact, I'm telling you this story now. It's been 5 years and I rarely talk about these issues. I ended up crawling into the back room and sitting there sorting the DVDs, and I lied to everyone and said I decided that the DVDs had got into a mess and that I wanted to make it, I didn't want anyone to trip over them, when the actual thing was, and I still don't understand it, I had no idea whether I would be able to walk in a few minutes, so I should have said to somebody, I can't walk, can you call somebody please? But no. Did I? No, I didn't. And then I ignored that for years until eventually my entire hip seized up and I ended up having to go to the physiotherapy, and that's when I found out that basically my bones eroded away the ball and the joint or something because I was never properly diagnosed when I should have been. I don't know. Either way, I have a bit of arthritis now and my bones are wearing away in my knees. Let's just shove all of the illness things in together. I have now had asthma for so long that I forgot that other people breathe normally. I think that that's all of the health-related ones. But I do have another great one. I am notorious for getting lost. By this I mean that I forget that roads exist. And I don't mean all of the roads in the world, that would just be silly. But whenever I'm going on a journey where I have to walk or even drive, sometimes I'll forget a part of that journey. And I will forget that that road is there. And so I will miss it entirely. Firstly, when I first started uni and I had to get the bus, and I was staying at my nan's then because it was a shorter journey than having to take an hour and a half to get there. I get on the bus in the morning and I say to the university campus, and we're trundling along, and eventually the bus driver says, well, I've got to come back round and there was a bus stop on the other side of the road. Why don't you just wait till I'm coming back? It's like, yeah, fine, that's fine by me. I'd got a day ticket anyway. He stops at the bus station and I just say to him, how long is it going to be till you're going back? And he says, oh, no, I'm not going back yet. You'll want to get on that bus. Like, okay, don't get angry. So I went and got on this other bus. It turns out that the bus driver had actually got confused, and when I said university campus, he thought that I'd meant the college campus. So I ended up getting taken to a college that I did not go to. I'd just finished college and I needed to get to university. Now I was dropped off outside a college campus that I didn't know, and I had to walk back to the bus station to then find my way back to the university campus. I walk all the way back from this college down the road. Fine. And rather than follow the bus route, I see a road and it said Ruskin Road. And in my head, I remember reading something about John Ruskin and writing about trains when I was at sixth form. And so me being me, decided to follow this road that I'd never been down before. And I ended up having to telephone my mother at 10 o'clock in the morning to say, I've not got to uni and I'm lost in Crewe. Does anybody there know Crewe? Because she was at a Weight Watchers meeting. Nobody knew Crewe. Eventually, I get back to the bus station and someone I sat next to on the bus going says, oh, that was quick. I said, I've never got there yet. She said, what do you mean? I said, and I told her the story. She's like, oh, well, we're going back now. Get to uni an hour late for my class to find out that the class had been cancelled. A very simple one. I don't like condiments. Tomato ketchup, mayonnaise, salad cream, you can keep it all. I don't like them. Mustard, have it. Goodbye. Don't like any of those weird dips and think no. Have them all. I don't like the textures, I don't like the flavours, they all taste highly acidic. They have no place in my life. Now we'll go back to the ones that other people sent me for facts, because I want to do 28 and I'm hoping I'll have 28, I don't know. Anyway, firstly we have about Emma Rosen Books was asking about my dogs, and as many of you will know, Rambo, my dog, died after having reached 15 years of age. We only now currently have 2 dogs at home, both of them my sisters, Titch and Floss. Titch was supposed to be a Jack Russell. She was actually supposed to be a pony, but that's a story for another day. And Floss is a border collie who Jess is training to do sheep work, and is the dog that you'll see if you see me do any clips of walks. She's the dog that I go on walks with my sister with. I can't see me getting another dog whilst I live at home. I'm 28, still living with my parents. Isn't that a bit sickening? Next we have favourite book, and so my favourite book is The Trouble with Goats and Sheep by Joanna Cannon. I've said this much and more. It has everything that I like to see in fiction. It reminds me of Alan Bennett, and it's about Grace and Tilly, these 2 young girls, and they're solving the mystery of this missing woman and trying to figure out whether her husband offed her, and it goes into the lives of everyone on this avenue. It's brilliant, superb, and nostalgic, and I adore it. However, my favourite writer is Joanne Harris, and this comes from having read tons of their work. She writes from different genres, so I've seen the books that she does, like Chocolat, the Lollipop Shoes, Peaches for Monsieur le Carré, the books that are they're set in France and they have the touch of magic about them, and many of her readers' favourite books. However, I also have her young adult series Rune Marks upon this shelf. She's written about Norse mythology with the Gospel of Loki and the Testament of Loki. She's written murder mysteries, she's written really dark psychological novels as well, and she's really genre bending. She tries everything. She has a lot of knowledge, many tools in her belt. She has a great series on YouTube about getting into writing and writing your own books. Whilst there have been books of hers that I haven't liked more than others, there has never been a book by her that I have outright disliked. Then someone asked what my favourite music was, and currently it is still Moona, and I'd say that my favourite song from them is still from their first album, and it is I Know a Place. This is currently my favourite song. It's that song I know all the words to. I even know the version that they did online where they were having a go at Donald Trump, and I adore that. Yeah, that's probably not my favourite genre of music. I couldn't say what my favourite genre is because it changes all the time dependent on mood, similar to how when you're reading, you read something based on your mood, or I watch something based on my mood. Sometimes you want to feel a little bit pretentious and highbrow, so you'll watch The Hours, that sort of thing. Next, someone asked me what the favourite place I've visited has been, and that is definitely Whitby. I didn't go on holiday before I was 21. My mother had said she'd take me to Italy for my 21st birthday. That didn't happen, and so I ended up funding my own trip to Whitby with her that autumn. It was brilliant. And I went into the Whitby bookshop and bought a new book every day. That's why I still have a copy of Dracula despite having not read it, because I wanted to purchase Dracula in Whitby. I don't know what more I can say other than I then visited it again a year later. I went and I took myself for my birthday once, and I just really adore the feel of the place and the people there. My friend Lizzie asked me about my favourite plants. This was difficult for me because I suffer from allergies incredibly, and everything I've ever tried to grow has never grown. Like every single 20-something person on this platform. I have a houseplant, his name is Norman, and came into my possession last year because one of our volunteers is a former florist who grows all of these plants for us, and we make money off them. And she brought this into my shop, was the only one she had, and so I got him. And I've been watering him for over a year now, and I still worry that he might be plastic, but that'll be okay. He's not, because he's lost leaves and they've died, but that's another story. I also like oxalis that she brings in, cosmos. I like geraniums. We have my dead grandmother's geraniums outside the house and it's always nice to see them grow. But otherwise, plant-wise, I'm not a planty person. Which brings me into favourite thing I've written. Currently I have to say An Heir to Murder. I know it's the most recent book that I've released, but feel so proud of that. I managed to keep it a secret. I managed to write the cosy crime novel I'd wanted to write since I was 12. So very, very happy with the fact that that book exists and that I managed to create it. And then I was asked for the best review of my work. All I will say with that is that the best reviews of my work aren't necessarily reviews. One was on Instagram when a fellow booktuber and bookstagrammer was reading An Heir to Murder and had photographed a picture where I said grief is stupid, and I thought, I was reading this and I recognised it, and it was the first time I'd been quoted and someone talked about how my book had got this good portrayal of grief in it. If you don't know me, another fact, but not a fact, is that I like to see grief portrayed well in fiction, and to get told that I'd done it well was really good for me. And the worst review I've ever got, I'm all for negative feedback, I'm all for negative reviews. If you dislike my book, and I know you, don't worry about it, feel free to post that review still. There will be no love lost between us, no hard feelings. I am aware that my books aren't for everybody. So therefore, I'd say that the worst review I've got is just this 1-star review I've got on Goodreads. It comes from when I first joined Goodreads as a writer, and back then you could do a giveaway, and so I decided to do a giveaway of 5 copies of Our Doris when I first released it. And this person, I can remember their name, posted a 1-star review and said thank you for the book that they'd received. It was their first ever giveaway on Goodreads. Now they don't use Goodreads anymore, and so I still got this 1-star review on there which says nothing about my book, and they got a free book and I don't even know that they ever read it. So that one just gets to me, because I don't mind anyone having an issue with my books. That's fine. I've had people call me out at events before. I can cope with that, but that one annoys me. Again, my friend Lizzie asks my weirdest dream recently, and currently I'm having tons of weird dreams. I have no idea why. I'll say a weird one that was more like a nightmare, and it was when I was stuck in a high-rise building, but all of the doors had been removed, and I kept pulling back the walls and they were just curtains and they weren't going anywhere, and I was just trapped inside this building, just running down the stairs trying to get out of it. And I won't lie, I did question whether there was some sort of afterlife and I was getting a glimpse of purgatory. That was a nightmare. I hated it, and it recurs. But I do think that also comes from my severe claustrophobia, which is great. You know, claustrophobia and agoraphobia at the same time is fantastic to get, because you hate being locked in anywhere, but you can't go out anywhere. Emily of Novan Novels asked for my favourite veggie meal, and I'd say basically, if you didn't know, I became a vegetarian. So last Christmas I came up with this pie recipe that I was going to make, where I sautéed parsnips and mushrooms and something else, and put them in a white sauce, covered them with pastry and baked it, and it was this festive pie that I had for Christmas Day, but I don't recommend it often. I'm trying to avoid carbohydrates for one thing, so it was just for one day, and I would probably do it again this year, but it would only be for special occasions. Next, Charlie of Charlie Brooke helped me out and asked me about my favourite drag characters, and by this she's only talking about the drag queens from RuPaul's Drag Race. Let's go with a 5. So at the top we always have Alaska Thunderfuck. I don't know why, but them. Then we're going Bob the Drag Queen, Shea Coulee, strangely enough, the Vixen in recent times, and there's a special place in my heart for Evie Oddly. There's 5 of them, but honestly, most of these people I end up thinking are extremely brilliant people outside of Drag Race, and recognising that that is really just a TV show that doesn't sometimes show off their talents to the best of their abilities. Oh lord, and then I got asked about my favourite films. Let's just say it, I don't like films. I do have some favourite films and I will watch films every now and then. At this point in time, I'd say my favourite film is probably Home Alone, because that's the last one I watched and it's probably the one I've watched the most. But I don't know what it is about films. But I just don't like sitting down and watching them. I don't know why. I could watch 2 hours worth of booktube videos and feel like I'd accomplished something, but whenever I watch a film, there is something wrong with me inside that says that I am wasting my time. So unless I'm watching a film whilst writing, I can't do it. I just cannot sit there. I even do it when I'm watching stuff. So like a few months back, I got into binge watching Stranger Things and Sabrina and all of those, but I had to be writing at the same time because I felt like I wasn't achieving anything by not doing so. I don't actually know whether I've got 28 facts now, you know, I've just been going on at this for so long. I've just found one, which I probably should have said when I was talking about dreams before. And this is that I have always suffered with insomnia. And so films actually help then. So I could connect it to films. And so my mum still tells stories of me being about 2 years old and waking her up in the middle of the night, like 1 in the morning sometimes, and getting her to put Cinderella on and then holding her eyes open when she was falling asleep during Bippity Boppity Boo. I can remember having moments during school where I would wake up on a Sunday night absolutely stressed, bawling my eyes out because being smart was really important to me, and I hadn't been able to sleep, and I was worried about going to school the next day having not slept. So insomnia has been a constant torment for me. And even my mum says about everyone now when they say about me waking up late, that I don't sleep. I think perhaps the most intrusive of all of these, because why not give facts unless they're going to be uncomfortable, is that I have never been in a relationship. Never. Never had any of those school romances that kids usually have. I mean, one, I rarely showed up to school due to stress-related illnesses and just not liking the place. In my late teens, after quite a few family members had died, I had this idea that I would never want to have children because you'd be bringing them into a world where you would ultimately die, and I could never see myself being responsible for giving them that grief of having to see people die. This also fed into feelings though I never had the time, and also being the mildest bit agoraphobic. Like I'd say it's mostly gone now, but back in the day I would never leave the house, or if I was getting taken to work by my parents and dropped off rather than just take the 20-minute walk. And this changed about 4 or 5 years ago when I released Our Doris. That really gave me some new confidence because I had to start speaking to strangers and I was seeing all these people I didn't know. So I'd say that helped a bit. I never left the house unless it was for work purposes or to do with the writers group, and the writers group is where most of my friends are based now. Most of my friends are over the age of 50 and have lived their lives, and I do feel as though for probably from the age of about 12 until at least 23, I didn't really allow myself to live a life because I was that concerned about things going wrong, concerned about the impression that people might get of me. It's why I never liked getting drunk, and I didn't even drink until I was 20, 21. And even now, I'm very aware of how much I drink because I don't like the idea of losing control. And I think that that's my problem. I'm a bit of a control freak. I've never even bothered trying, really. And I think that's probably the most central one. And I will admit some envy and some jealousy of seeing people from school or people I've known previously going on to lead quite successful lives where they have ended up doing what you're supposed to do with your life. Meanwhile, I've always thought more in terms of, well, I can't do that because I've got writing to do, and seeing someone might really bugger that up. I think that's a nice bombshell to end on and to celebrate. being 28. To admit all of these things to you and reveal that Lord Charlie is more boring than we'd ever anticipated. I mean, we knew he was nerdy, but come on. This video exists because I have turned 28 and other people don't tend to celebrate this day with me. Ever since my mother forgot my 14th birthday and came downstairs and was wondering what I was a bit mad about, and then remembered, which, you know, with your firstborn, I think it's usually the date that you should remember, you know. The child that you were supposedly in labour for a week with, you'd kind of remember that one above any other, I think. But hey, this is my mother we're talking about. That was the moment when I started to probably not treat it with the same esteem as other people treat their birthdays. Didn't have the big 18th birthday that other people have. My 21st birthday was celebrated by work. They took me out and I burnt my mouth on a flaming sambuca. I've reached an age where, really, if I wanted, I could just tell everybody that I was still 24, because nobody pays attention to this day but me. So before we get too maudlin, I just want to say, if you've stuck around this long, thank you. Great stuff. If you did get bored, I'm not going to apologise because I warned you at the start of this video. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and until next time, that is all. That's right. Never been in a relationship, never been on a date, never done any of those things that you expect young people to do as a young person, beginning to navigate relationships as an adult. Not done them. Ignored a lot of people. Quite honestly, I have been something of a terrible person, but I have warned you. I've told you all for the last 5 years I'm not a good person. If you did not realise I was slowly turning into a supervillain, that's on you.